friends, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to talk about lessons that I have learned on this journey in becoming an artist. And I'm not talking about how to draw. I'm not talking about, learn how to draw shapes and construction, building and colors. I'm actually talking about life lessons, because art has, on this journey to becoming an artist, I have learned some life lessons, and it kind of sneaked its little self in there. And now reflecting back on it, because I am doing a little reflection, and I have learned some life lessons on my journey in art, and we're going to talk about that. Okay, if you're seeing me wearing the same outfit, the exact same outfit, in 2 vlogs, that's because I have recorded 2 vlogs today. Okay, I just recently, about an hour ago, did one, and this is the second one. Okay, so let me drink some water. Sorry about that. One of the things that art has taught me is water, how important water is, especially now using YouTube to teach myself art. I find myself having thirst more. So I got a 2-liter water bottle. I filled it up with water, and I promised myself to drink at least 2 liters of water a day. I could give or take a liter, from other sources like juice, or from my breakfast, coffee. If I decide to drink some herbal tea or something, maybe a smoothie, I could give or take the liter coming from those. But for the most part, I promise myself to drink 2 liters of water for the day, especially on a day like today when it's so hot. And that's lesson number 1, to keep myself hydrated. And now let's get into lesson number 2. One of the other life lessons that I have learned on this journey in art is an appreciation for other people other than myself. How can I frame that? It's like I have developed this cheap coloring booky kind of art drawing style. I don't know how it happened. Maybe it's because I use coloring books as art reference. I really do. I went to the local stationery store and bought a bunch of cheap coloring books, and I use those as art reference. And as follows, I developed a cheap coloring booky style of drawing. But also because I see how other people draw, and I am astonished by them. Even if they draw, it's not they draw worse than me or they draw better than me. They just have their own art style. And there goes my dogs. I don't know, probably someone is passing by the house. And it's just so amazing how they interpret their world. And that's one of the things that art has, I know I'm using my hands, that's one of the things that this journey in art taught me, to appreciate other people's art style, to appreciate other people's vision, and their interpretation. And it kind of sneaked itself up in there, because you have this one way of seeing things, and sometimes you think your way of seeing things is the best way. But when you go into art, you see the world through someone else's eyes, and how they illustrate that. And it gives you this appreciation for their vision and for their interpretation, and basically for their art. And that's one of the amazing things, that's the chief thing that art has taught me, how to appreciate other people's interpretation and vision. The third, or the second, lessons that I have learned in this journey to art is patience. My goodness. And especially because I love colored pencils, or coloring pencils. It has taught me a lot of patience. And I love watercolor. And I don't know why someone is passing the house and they're just going buck wild. And There they go again. Let them calm down first, and then we're going to talk about patience. Sorry about that. She was just going buck wild. Patience. Colored pencil or coloring pencil is such a slow medium, and I didn't understood what that meant until a few months ago, and it's not even within 2020. I was like before 2020, like in the September of last year, I understood and appreciate what that mean. I mean, how I used to, and this is long before I took this journey on. When I color pencils, I don't lighten my hand. I go in there and I really rub that in. And when I learn more about coloring pencils, and when I learn more about using that medium, I learned that you actually have to lighten your touch when using colored pencils. And you know, the layering effect comes with the amount of layers you place onto that spot. And the lighter your touch is, the more layers that surface can appreciate or can absorb, the more. So the lighter you are, the more color or pigment the surface can absorb or tolerate. And that's why it's a slow medium, because you've got to go in there really, really light. I mean, you got to barely touch the tip of the pencil onto that surface, barely. And then you go in there and again, barely touch the tip of that pencil onto that surface. And that's how you build color, and that's how you should work with colored pencils. And that is patience. I mean, there's some peas, literally peas. Just coloring some peas. After I finished drew it, it took about 45 minutes to drew the peas, and it took about 3 hours to do just the little peas themselves within the pods. It took like 3 hours to do that because I was using like 8 different colored pencils, including greens and yellows and whites. I think there's some blues in there. And it took so long, 3 hours just to color some peas. I think I showed the progress on my Instagram, and I will link my Instagram in this. And then I decided to do one of the pods, and that took another 2 hours to do, with again about 8 coloring pencils just to do that. And I wasn't even going for realism. I was just going to work with it in a way that I felt comfortable working with it. And I learned that it was a lot of patience. It took so much patience. And I also translate that into my personal and my professional life. And I realized that not only do I appreciate other people's viewpoint, not only do I appreciate other people's not only their viewpoints, but I appreciate how they interpret their world. Well, basically that's a viewpoint, but I appreciate that. But I also am patient. I'm not always right, and I don't always have to get things done quickly. Sometimes things go through a process. Sometimes things go through a mechanism to make it work, and you just need to be patient. And patience is something that I learned, not only through coloring pencils, but also through watercolor, because you gotta wait for that water to dry. Sometimes it dries within 5 minutes. Sometimes it's completely dry within half an hour, all depending on the humidity and the weather and what environment that watercolor is being done in will tell you how quickly that will dry. And those are some of the life lessons I've learned: patience and appreciation. And the third and final, well, not the final lesson, because I'm sure there's other lessons, life lessons that I will learn as I go along this journey. And there goes the birds. The third lesson I've learned is creativity and ingenuity. It just sneaked itself up in there, and a lot of times when I'm looking at something, I don't only look at it through my Belizean eyes or my nursing eyes. I also look through it through my artist eyes. And I'm amazed about how creative the artist eye is, and how three-dimensional, I should say, the artist eye is, that I could look at something, if we have a problem and I see it from the medical perspective, I see it from the layman Belizean society perspective, but there's this other perspective that is completely out of the box. And that's how I also see it too. And this is that creative ingenuity that I have developed from this journey to art, that I could actually think out of the box. I mean, I can see things. It allows me to be more proactive than reactive. It allows me to interpret things before they happen, to kind of, I mean, especially in this day and age where we're dealing with this new virus that is just wreaking havoc globally. I can actually see what's going on the horizon, you know, and see and interpret it. And that's thanks to my journey in art, because it allows me to be creative. It allows me to be ingenuitive. It allows me to interpret these things and to be proactive with it. And not only to be proactive, but to appreciate that if I didn't think about it, maybe someone else has thought about it, to appreciate that other person's ideas and viewpoints and welcome it, and to see how we can team up to make something beautiful, because it's not only about me. Maybe there's someone else who's seen something that I am not seeing. And if we come together and we put our heads together, like two artists two artists can make a masterpiece, and it can create something beautiful. So basically, those are the three lessons that I have learned on this journey of art, that has adopted itself into my professional life and also has adopted itself into my personal life. And I just wanted to share that with you. And as always, thank you for joining me on this journey. And I've always stay safe. Even before COVID-19 decided to become our grand old, I don't want to say nightmare, but even before he decided to come, I always say stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.